All right. So thank you again. Use the chat feature to let us know who you are, the department you come from, and classes you're teaching as well. Welcome to the session. My name is Pablo Avila. I work at the Center for Teaching and Learning. I know many of you already, and I look forward to the conversation. Nikki.
Good morning,
Hello.
everyone. My name is Nikki Jones. I work for the Academic Affairs on the STEM grant. Welcome. I hope this is a very exciting session.
And welcome once again. The way that we wanted to facilitate this session was we're talking about two specific features on Zoom, those being the breakout room and the polling feature. I'm sure many of you have heard about those. So we wanted to first make sure that all of you are contributing to the discussion. And if there is anyone who has used either one of these features, do you have any experiences having used them? Are there any tips or maybe challenges that you have come across when using either the breakout room or the polling feature? And this is, I think, sort of like an open mic. Feel free to unmute yourself and chiming into the conversation. So has anybody used either one of these features? And if so, could you tell us a little bit about it?
I'd like to share my experience. Yeah. Hi, this is Kon. I have tried to use, as for the breakout rooms, I have tried to use pre-assignment feature so that because during the class time, I break them into small group and then call them back into the big group and then reassign them to the small group again. And I want them to stay within the same group, at least for the day. Mm-hmm. And probably throughout the semester. So I tried pre-assignment for the past 2 semesters and then ended up giving it up because it never worked. For some reason, only a handful of students were pre-assigned. Mm-hmm. And so in the most recent semester, I announced them that they have to first log in with their CUNY email because that's what I used for pre-assignment and etc. But still, like a lot of students were left out. So I ended up giving it up and then I just like manually assigned them for the class time, which is sort of inconvenient if the class size is more than 35 because it takes time to do so. So yeah. That's my experience.
And let me ask you a quick follow-up question. When you're looking to use a pre-assignment feature, do you want specific students to be in specific groups, or are you looking to randomly assign those groups?
I manually assign them. So I want to be in a specific group.
Okay, great. Thank you. What about others? Have others encountered that similar challenge, or have you encountered other experiences when using either breakout room or the polling features on Zoom?
This is Christian Gatti,
yes, go ahead.
Mathematics Department. And this is my experience that I had, I think about 2 semesters ago with one of my students that she was supposed to get access to an online software so that it can go online and do some of the work. But she turns out that she wasn't able to register because she hadn't gotten the access code from the company. But I kind of assumed that because in the literature and the handouts, she was supposed to contact, all right, the software company to make the purchases or to go to the bookstore. And then there's a link for that. So I assumed that she had read it and I had actually told them what to do to get access to the online company that sells the software because the department doesn't handle those kind of registration. So the class had gone on through like a month and she was having problem and the way she was describing it is like she had purchased the access code and somehow it wasn't working and so on. So I had to explain that to her that she got to contact the company again if she had purchased it with a credit card or whatever means, she should have been given a receipt. And she said, yes, I got the receipt. All right. And she, all right, put the conversation up for the next time. And she came to class and, but to cut a long story short, uh, I said that, all right, I'll contact the department and see if they can be of any help. But this is separate from the school because the math department doesn't deal with those kind of softwares. So, and one of the lectures, the last time she came online, she did something, and then the microphone and every protocol that I have got shut down. And so I could hear other students, saying that, well, I think they've had it for the day and they logged off. So I had to contact the deputy chair and we discussed it. So, I think that, well, she got the student's ID number and the course number and so on. But in the long run, we found out that she never purchased the access code.
Mm.
But then, I allowed her to come back to the class. She wasn't participating, but I think something like this. I kind of felt that that was the situation because during the regular semester where we have in-class sessions, there were other students that also had that kind of a problem,
Mhm.
and they didn't want to actually purchase the ticket or the access code to get online.
Mhm.
So I didn't want to come out and say that I think there's something wrong with her purchasing and so on
Yeah.
because she was agitated and so on. But in the long run, she came to the finals to take the exam, and actually she hadn't done anything online with respect to the backup software that we have standalone. So it was a quite an experience, being that we are not in classroom setting. I just have to entertain whatever that she's trying to say to me. But and the class was trying to get me into a confrontation with her, but I didn't go there
Yeah.
because that wouldn't be a good experience for any of us.
For anybody. Yeah.
But then the deputy chairperson knew exactly what was happening. So we discussed it in abstention. So, I removed myself from the situation.
I,
Right? It was quite an experience. Right?
yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think working remotely, working and teaching and learning remotely
Yeah.
is has been difficult in all
It's a challenge.
aspects.
Yes.
It's a challenge for everyone, and thank you for raising that because the way that we connect to our conversation here is thinking about how do we facilitate those conversations, how do we make this
Right.
platform work for our
Yeah.
advantage, because in many cases it can be conducive to misunderstanding or students disengaging.
Exactly.
So there's actually a couple of sessions happening about right now in terms of student engagement,
Mhm.
which I hope will be recorded, and I invite you to look at those recordings later so that you can at least find some tips in terms of facilitating those conversations when there's misunderstanding and then involving others as it seems that you did.
Yeah, I discussed it with deputy chairperson, and we knew exactly what was happening, and so I was comfortable with that. As a matter of fact, also to cover myself, that I have given her the chances to actually, come back to the class and participate. But she was able to come back. But then there's no way she could actually pass the course
Yeah.
because she hadn't fulfilled all the different aspect of the course.
Yeah. Now I wanna make sure that we continue along with our
Sure, sure.
agenda. So if you were just joining us, please use the chat feature to share your name, your department. We're talking briefly about breakout room and the polling feature. I'm going to share my screen. If you have any questions or perhaps challenges, please use the chat feature so that you can share those. My colleague Nikki and I will make sure that we're trying to respond to as many challenges and questions as you may have. My colleague Nikki will be um, monitoring the chat. I'm going to share my screen for just a moment. You should be able to see everything that I'm seeing right now. I believe so. And one of the things that we always wanted to do is in going over the breakout room is just making sure that we can set it up properly. So again, if you have any questions, please put them on the chat because we want to use this space to learn about these two features, breakout room and polling. In this case, the breakout room, every time you begin the breakout room, um, there will be three main options. The first one is to assign automatically, the second one being assigned manually, and the third one being let participants choose room. And I think the third option is one that would probably be helpful to all of us. So if you say choose assigned automatically, you can always indicate the number of breakout rooms that you want. Let's say that you want to have 5 breakout rooms in your room. So you can always increase that number. And then notice that as I increase or decrease the number, Zoom is going to automatically assign people into those breakout rooms at random. Okay, let's first talk about that, and then we're going to figure out how we can assign people manually. If you simply, let's say that I only want 3 rooms, you simply choose that and then hit on create. At this point, nothing is happening. Okay, on the background, nothing is being, there's no breakout rooms that are open. We are simply setting them up. So what we're gonna do is, let me just close this so that I can make more space here. So in here, what Zoom did is it randomly assigned um, participants into our rooms. So in this case, I have a room number 1 with all of my colleagues right here. Room number 2, I have all of these colleagues in this room and so forth. I can always rename, depending on the activity that you may be doing, I can always rename the rooms by clicking on this. Let's say that you don't want that to be called room number 1. Let's say that you want this to be team A and so forth. And then the same for this, and then team B and so forth, right? It's straightforward. Right next to each name, you will always find 2 options when you assign people randomly. The first one is move to, okay? The move to, it's very helpful in case you wanna put people in a different group. Let's say my colleague David right here, I actually don't want him to go to team A, I want him to go to team B. So it will essentially move it between groups and groups, okay? That's the move to option. And the exchange is when I want to exchange someone. Let's say I want so-and-so to be exchanged with so-and-so from this other group. So let's say that I want to exchange, let's say my colleague Erica right here with, let's say on team B with my colleague Christine Marks. So it will swap both of them, take this participant to the other room and bring the other participant into this room, okay? There's always important about the settings of the breakout rooms that I wanted to quickly share. And Nikki, please do let me know if there are questions that are coming up that I can cover. The first one being, and again, if you are on the breakout room feature and you see the gear button, you simply click on it. The first option is allow participants to choose room. I always use this. Why? Because even when I'm setting up my own rooms, depending on the activity, if I want students to be able to choose a particular room, I give them the option. And essentially what happens is they open the breakout rooms and they will be able to see the groups that I have set up, and they click on the one that they want to join. I teach a first-year seminar course, and when I do a lot of advisement, I create breakout rooms by the different programs in education. So students who want to learn about early childhood will go to that group. Students who want to learn about another program go to that other respect. So that's one example of an activity that I do. I always check this if my activity is conducive for students to choose a room. Okay.
Pablo, there's a question. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
So Kevin asked about breakout rooms. His question is, he currently uses Blackboard Collaborate Ultra for class and breakout rooms. Do you have any opinions, pros and cons of Zoom breakout rooms versus Blackboard Collaborate breakout rooms?
Right.
So as a disclaimer, I'll say that I haven't used Blackboard Collaborate extensively. However, the latest that I know, and this is from the few times that I have used it, one of the key differences, and this happened to me when I had a student who needed an interpreter, one of the key differences between the breakout rooms or the overall platform between Blackboard Collaborate and Zoom is that you're not able to ping someone else, in this case an interpreter, so that the student who needs to see the interpreter is always able to view that person. So that's one of the main differences that I found when I had a student who needed an interpreter. In Zoom, when you are on, and let me just quickly get out of this to exemplify this, when I am on speaker view, meaning right here, it is portraying a specific person. In this case, I see my colleague on the screen. When you go and you ping someone, you are able to see that person at all times, even when that person is not speaking. And for the student who needs an interpreter, the interpreter is not producing any sound, but you're able to ping their video. In Blackboard Collaborate, it wasn't possible. Again, this is when I used it for a few times. That's one of the main differences that I have found between the two tools. And quite honestly, I work as a staff member at the college and we use Zoom for meetings. So I decided to choose and opting for Zoom because it's one platform for everything in my case. But that's one scenario where I could think there's a main difference between both. So back into this, I was on the settings, and one of the things—
Before we go on,
Yes,
there's some
go ahead.
questions. So Rosa said she's having difficulty setting the breakout rooms. Is it possible for you to show her? She can't see those possibilities in her settings.
Are you looking for the options in this call right now, or are you looking, or is in general when you open your Zoom?
In general, when I try, I go to settings and I don't find the possibility. Is it
Okay.
done? Yeah.
So let me show this very quickly. I think you're able to see my browser, right,
Yes.
Nikki?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So once you're logging into your browser, into your Zoom account, you log into your Zoom account, CUNY Zoom account, and then go into settings. The breakout room needs to be enabled. So you can always just go into the settings page, and then I can't remember where it is. So I'm just going to do Control F and find it. It's under In Meeting Basic. So essentially, this feature needs to be on. In some cases, I have come across users who do not have it enabled. So when they go and check their settings, it happens that it's not on. So just make sure that it is on. And then after you turn it on, every time you as a host begin a breakout, a Zoom meeting, start a Zoom meeting, you will be able to see the options. Now, a couple of people also get confused.
Thank you.
Absolutely. A couple of people also get confused, and I wanted to mention this. When you attend someone else's meeting and you're looking for the breakout room, remember that the host is the person who needs to enable that. Okay? So if you do not see the breakout room, it probably is not because you don't have it enabled. It probably is because of the host who hasn't enabled the breakout room feature. In this case, for instance, right now you probably don't see the breakout room because I, as the host, have not enabled it yet, okay? But when you begin your own meeting with your own account and you have turned it on, as I mentioned a moment ago, you will be able to view it. I want to quickly go to this, and then I want to make sure that we jump to the polling feature. If there is additional questions or challenges that you have come across, please do let me know. Put it on the chat so that Nikki and I are able to respond to this.
Before you start that, Robin had a question about starting breakout rooms. Robin, does that answer your question?
Yes, because
Okay, good.
Zoom. That's only for Zoom, right? Not Blackboard Collaborate.
Correct. We're not speaking about Blackboard Collaborate now.
Right.
Yes, this is all
Okay.
in the Zoom interface. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So absolutely. Yes. So one last feature that I will go over right here is the countdown after closing breakout rooms. And I will guess that you have experienced this when you're in someone else's meeting in the breakout room, and then suddenly you're teletransported to the main room in the middle of your sentence. So this is always important, the countdown after closing. Essentially what happens is you can give your students or your participants, whoever you're meeting with, a countdown after you close the rooms, okay? And what this means is that when you hit the button close rooms, essentially they will all be taken back to the main room. If you do not check this off, they will be taken back automatically. But if you do check it off, you can give them all the way between 10 seconds to 120 seconds. So it always is helpful. And then they will see a pop-up window that says the host is inviting you to the main room. They can choose to go back right away if they click on it, or they will see the countdown. And then by the time it hits 0, then boom, they will all appear on the breakout, on the main room. I want to use recreate because I want to use this option right here. And essentially what I'm going to demonstrate now is I'm going to open the breakout rooms. None of you are going to see anything. None of you are going to disappear from the main room, but I do want to demonstrate how this is essentially what is happening. I'm creating the rooms and I'm giving you all the option to see how the breakout rooms will appear when you choose that option, okay? This option right here, the let participants choose room. So you will be able to see the breakout rooms. Do not join because we're only doing this for demonstration purposes. And then I will go ahead and open these breakout rooms. So essentially what's happening now, nothing happened on your screen, but if you look for, let me unshare my screen. If you look for the option breakout room, go ahead and click on it and do not join, but you will be able, if you're able to see the breakout room, that is essentially how it is going to appear. And then you would have the option to join, right? I am not I don't recommend that you join because we're doing this for demo purposes, but I do want to show you how this looks like on the background. So let me just quickly do this. Again, I'm sharing my screen so that you are able to see what happens. It says right here unassigned, and this is because I did not assign you automatically, right? And you can see all of your names. And then I see a couple of people, look, a couple of people joined. So I'm gonna bring them back so that they don't spend any more time there, but let me just go ahead. The cool thing that I wanted to show you all here is the broadcast message to all, okay? And here you can say, you can basically broadcast a message to your students and then tell them we have 5 more minutes, we have 10 more minutes. It doesn't show you how many characters you have here, but I can't remember how many, but it's a short message. It's almost like a tweet. So if you want to send like a full prompt, for instance, I don't recommend using this because it won't let you enter that much text. I normally use this when I tell my students we have until 11:15, or we have 10 more minutes, or we have 1 minute, something like that. You put your message and you hit broadcast, and that message will appear on the top to every single group. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close all the rooms. And essentially, that is how you work out the breakout room. One thing that I wanted to share is if you're interested in using this and you are going to be using this in your classes, I learned this by experience. It's always helpful to give at least 10-15 minutes to your breakout room activity, because of students normally take some time. So if you want to do a 5-minute activity where you put students in a small group with a quick activity, I have found a lot of challenges in trying to do those quick activities. So I normally try to devote and design my activities so that they are at least 15 minutes. 15 minutes long, and then I can visit each room, and then I can visit each room and then check in with students. Okay.
Pablo, we have some questions in the chat.
Go right ahead.
Do you think we can do them now?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So there were some questions earlier from Maureen and Jan about sort of pinning for interpreters and also randomizing the groups. I think Maureen had started this by saying, you know, when you have a student who has an interpreter, is there a way to assign the student and the interpreter, but also randomize the group? So I don't know if you can address that question. And the second question, I think the follow-up to that was, who actually does the pinning, the student or the interpreter?
For the first question, what I have done in the past is I know my interpreter's name and the student. So every time that I randomize groups, I simply use the feature that I showed, move to, so that I can say, okay, if my interpreter is Peter and my student is John, Peter and John have to be in the same room. So I always use the move to feature so that I can put both of them on the same group. So that's what I would recommend for that. In terms of the pinning is actually the ability, every user is able to pin any video. And if you hover over your own video thumbnail in this call or anyone, and you go ahead and click on the 3 buttons, you should be able to find the option ping. And let's say that I am a user and I need to see my interpreter Michael. I can go into Michael's video and then I can click on the 3 blue buttons and then choose the option ping. The pinning, it's always for the student only, for the user only. So if I am pinning someone, if I, Pablo, I'm pinning, let's say my colleague Christine, because she's my interpreter, only I will be able to see that. Other people are not gonna see her video unless she's talking, right? So the pinning is something that any user in the call is able to do.
We also have a question from Robin about breakout rooms and whether or not students can see themselves in the breakout rooms.
Students should be able to see themselves in the breakout room as long as you open the breakout room, and it will be the same environment as on the main room. So right now, for instance, if you go into, let me just share my screen, and I'm sharing my screen for the purposes of demonstrating this. If you go into the view icon right here, you can always put speaker, right? Or you can put gallery, right? And if you put gallery, I'm able to see everyone in the call. And if you're able to do this, you will too as well. And students will be able to see themselves in the breakout room, pending that each of them has their camera on, right? And if they do not, let's say my colleague Hector, I'm only seeing his name because there's no profile picture. In the case of my colleague Marina, I'm seeing her in a picture because she uploaded a picture to her profile. So if they have their cameras on, obviously we will see them. If they do not have their cameras on, then you may see either one of these logos, okay? Let me just stop sharing. Okay, can we move on to polling? Does anybody have any other questions?
No, there's several more questions in the chat, so I'm gonna try to get through them. So Robin asked, does this have to be set up in Zoom before the start of any class section?
The answer is yes and no. Yes and no, because yes, you are able to create groups in advance of the meeting. And let me just show you what this looks like. Just show this, and you should be able to see my browser now, right? So if you go into your own meeting, for instance, you're able to see my browser, right, Nikki?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say this is my EDF that's happening on Saturday. So I do not have any breakout rooms, but if I want, I can always add, let's see, only this meeting. If I want to add this in advance, this is on Saturday, but I can always allow the breakout room pre-assign. And when I choose, oh, this is because it's a recurring. When it's a recurring meeting, you're not able to do that. When it's a single meeting, you are able to. So let me just go back and choose a random one. Let's see right here. So when you go right here, so when you have a single meeting, you are able to choose this option right here, breakout room pre-assigned, and then you don't necessarily have to pre-assign users to a group. You can simply create the rooms with the names, right? Remember when I was doing team A, team B, you can simply create the rooms with the names that you want and then leave the rooms unassigned. Now, if you do want to assign users to that group, to that team, you would have to make sure, and this is something that someone, sorry, I can't remember who mentioned this, but someone mentioned earlier today, the pre-assign was challenging because some students were assigned to their rooms and some of them were not. The reason for that is because when a student enters the room, they would have to enter with their specific CUNY account. So if you're instructing your students to enter with their CUNY account and they do, then chances are that they will be pre-assigned to their respective room if you did assign them, right? But if they do not enter the account, enter the meeting with a specific account, then they simply will not be able to be assigned to their room. And this normally happens when students are new, they don't know how to activate their Zoom accounts. They just enter the room with the link, with the meeting ID, and that's it. They give themselves a name and that's it. But then if that's the case, then they're not going to be able to be pre-assigned into the room that you chose, right?
There was a question, Pablo, about how do you adjust the time option of the breakout room sessions? I know you sort of went over that. So I don't know, is that clear? So I see Jay Kindred asked that question. Does that make sense or did you need additional?
I got that now. Thank you so much.
Okay,
you got it.
awesome.
Yeah,
and so there's some other questions, Pablo. I don't know if you want to.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Christine asked, how do I move in and out of different rooms? So I have several breakout rooms created. How do I go in and out of those rooms?
Let me share this very quickly. I'm going to create a breakout room. I'm going to do, so I'm going to recreate, and then I'm going to do assign manually. And then I'm going to remove this so that there's no confusion. So I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms. So right now I open the breakout room. Okay, I am the host. Pretend that this is our class and pretend that you're not seeing the unassigned, but instead you're seeing room number 1, 2, and 3. Pretend that you see 10 people here, 20 people here, and so forth. When you open the breakout room, obviously, if I open the breakout room, whether I assign people manually or automatically, everyone will be gone and I will be the only one here in the main room. So all I have to do is as the host, I click on the join and then I will have this option, right? And then I will be able to click yes if I want to join that. Then at the end, once I am in that breakout room, when I go into, let me close this quickly. When I am on that breakout room, now pretend that this is a breakout room, okay? When I go and I click on the, when I'm in the breakout room, this button ends on the lower right-hand side. Instead of an end, it will say leave breakout room. And then if I hit leave breakout room, it's a blue button, then you will be transported to the main room. Now, you don't necessarily have to come back to the main room. You can always, while you're in a breakout room number 1, you can always, as the host, you will be able to see the breakout room, and then you can jump directly into the other room without having to be in the main room, right? So I was in room number 1, I can click on room number 2, and then go ahead and click yes, and then I'll go jump back and forth. This, what I'm explaining right now, takes a moment or two. So that's why a moment ago I suggested don't give yourself 5 minutes for the breakout rooms, because if you want to join each room, as I'm sure you may be considering, it takes time to jump back and forth. It's not like being in the classroom and you can walk from one end to the other. So give yourself some time if you want to do that. So that's essentially how you do it. I want to cover the polling feature. I know there may be some questions, and there's also going to be a Zoom training that the CTL will be offering next week. So I'm going to share that in just a moment on the chat. But I want to show quickly the polling feature. So the polling feature is, and I'm sharing my screen, you should be able to see yourselves. The polling feature as the host, you will always be able to see it. Now, remember that the polling, you also have to double check in case you do not see it in your own room when you start a meeting as a host. Remember to go into your settings. Can't remember where it is, but I'm just gonna do this. Meeting polls, yes. Right here, it's under e-meeting basic. Make sure that this is on, okay? And if this is on, then you will be able to see the button right here, right next to the sharing screen. So I simply click, excuse me, I click on it. And then what's gonna happen is you will be presented with this, okay? This is quite similar to the breakout room. You can set them up on the spot or you can set them up in advance, okay? So in my case, I didn't set anything in advance. That's why I'm seeing this. And chances are that if you didn't do anything, if you want to use the polling feature, you're gonna be presented with this. So you go ahead and click on add a question. And when you click on add a question, you essentially will be taken to the meeting space where obviously this is the meeting, the Zoom meeting that we created, and then you're going to be presented with this. The polling feature is very helpful. However, it does have some limitations. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and put test, and then I'm going to put what day is, or what color do you like? Well, go ahead and do this, right? So you can either set up a question so that it's a single choice or it's a multiple choice. Those are all the limits that you can have on the polling feature using Zoom. So let's say that you want to pose an open-ended question. It doesn't work. You either can have questions that have a single choice as an answer or a multiple choice as an answer. So I'm just going to go ahead and put yellow here. I'm going to put red here, and then I'm going to put blue here because I love blue. So I'm going to go ahead. You can add more questions if you want. But if you add more questions, the questions will be exactly in the same format. A question and then the options. And you can give the users the ability to choose only one or multiple. You can always choose the anonymous. And what this means is when someone responds, you will not be able to see who responded what. If you do not check this, you can pull a report from Zoom and then it will say, Christine answered yellow. Nikki answered blue, and so forth, right? So you can go ahead and hit save. And then what happens is you hit save, and now that I am back on my Zoom meeting, I'm gonna go ahead and hit poll. And then now that I have created the question, now I'm presented with a question. So what I'm gonna do is, you haven't seen anything other than what you're seeing from me as a host. I'm gonna go ahead and stop my share, and then I'm gonna hit launch poll. And when I hit launch poll, each of you in your screens, you should be able to see the option, and you can go ahead and vote. And I love that people are choosing blue because that's my favorite color. So I can see, let me go ahead and share my screen very quickly so that you can see what happens on the background. So as you can see in my screen, I'm seeing the poll as it is being administered. I can see the timing. Let's say that I can tell myself I'm going to put this poll up for like 1 minute, right? I can see the number of people who have responded. I can go ahead and hit end poll. When I hit end poll, you no longer are able to choose the option. And then I can either relaunch, meaning if I know, you know what, not everybody responded, let me go ahead and relaunch it again. But if not, you can go ahead and share the results, which is what I'm going to go ahead and do here. And then you should now be able to see the results only, right? So I normally do this when I normally tell people, have you checked your My LaGuardia already? And without identifying themselves, I can tell them, have you entered LaGuardia, My LaGuardia, yes or no? and I can gauge and see how people are, or do you know how to activate your email, or have you started your e-portfolio, things that are related to my own class, right? You can think of similar examples for your own activities. I can stop the sharing now, and that is essentially how it works. Again, very helpful, to be honest. I've used it more than a couple of times. However, it's limiting to the extent that you're only able to pose either questions that have a single choice or questions that have a multiple choice. If you're thinking of using something like an open-ended question, then certainly this will not be your best option. Okay, questions?
So we have a few questions in the chat. One is, can we use the poll-in feature for attendance? And the second question is, are polls recorded separately as the chat room in Zoom sessions?
You can use it for attendance, to be honest. I guess I'm just trying to think of the question, right? So you saw a moment ago, you have a question, and then you have the student is not able to enter any text. You have to give them the options. Either they choose single option or multiple choice, right? So you can ask them a question like, what day is today? And then they answer, and then you tell them, make sure that you answer because this will be your attendance. And then if you do not choose the option anonymous, then you will be able to see who answered what, right? Now, here's a caveat, and I hope I don't complicate things, but I've learned this the hard way. When you pull the report, you're not making the polling anonymous, but you pull the report and you want to see, I want to know, what did my colleague Kevin, what color does he like? So I want to go into the report and see it. If a student joined your meeting and did not have an account, in other words, joined from a phone, in the report, you're going to see 718347, so and so and so, said blue. And you don't know who that number is, right? So that's why it is important to rename students. You can do that as a host, or you can tell your students to do that. And the way that you do that, let me go ahead and share my screen very quickly. Let me just pick on my colleague Christine as an example. I, as the host, can rename anybody, and so will you when you begin a session. Let's say that I need to rename my colleague Christine, so I can go and click on the 3 blue dots. And then as the host, I will be able to see a number of options, but I'm looking for rename. And let's say that I just want, because she has the right name, I just want to add English because she's from the English department. So now, as you can see, now her name is her first name and last name and the department. I can do that as a host. You will be able to do that as a host. When I have a student who is joining from a phone number and I do not know who they are, I ask them. For instance, let me give another example right here. Perfect example, DD. So I don't know who DD is. I think it's my colleague Deborah Robinson. So I'm going to go ahead and click on her 3 dots right here, and then go ahead and put this, and then I'm going to put Deborah Robinson. And I'm happy to see her in the session. So now I can know, and even when there was no video, I didn't know who she was, but I saw on the chat, she is Deborah Robinson, so I have renamed her. If I do that before setting up the poll, then obviously when you pull the report, you will be able to see who answered what, right? So that's a caveat. If you want students to do that themselves, meaning you don't have to rename them yourself, you can do that. And the way that you do that is by, if you see the security button right here on the bottom of my screen, I see that as the host. You will see that as the host in your own meeting, not in this meeting, but in your own meeting. And when you click on it, you will be able to see the option, allow participants to. I, by default, always allow participants to rename themselves, but probably you don't see that option check. If you check, make sure that it's on. Right now, I just turned it off. So if it's off, you will see it like this. You simply check it, and then participants will be able to do that themselves. So you tell them, if you see your name with a random number, phone number, or with something else, the way that you do this, hover over your video, click on the 3 dots. They're not going to see this many options. I see this because I'm the host, but they will find the option rename, and make sure that they give themselves the right name. Okay, so that way, when you pull the report, you know who that person was. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, we have, so 2 more questions. Can you preset polls before a session? And you have to close the shared screen before assigning the poll.
Can you repeat the last part? Can you stop the share screen?
Sure. Here, hold on one second. Just let someone in the room. So do you have to close the shared screen before assigning the poll?
I think that may be in relation to what I did. I only share my screen so that I can demonstrate what that looks like from a host perspective. You don't have to share your screen at all when you are launching a poll. I only did that so that you could see from a host perspective how that looks like. So in other words, when you launch a poll, all you have to do is click on poll, set the question up, and launch it. There's no sharing screen needed at all. Can you set it up in advance? The answer is yes. So let me just go and share my screen right here. So if I go into my meeting and I'm going to choose this one right here. If I go into the meeting itself, not editing it, the meeting itself, this is a random meeting. This is 8 o'clock tonight. If you scroll down at the bottom, you will see the polling feature, and then you will be able to click add, and then essentially you have the same interface that I showed you when I clicked on poll. So if I want to have a question in advance for my class, I can always go and then click on the locate the polling area, click on add, and then set up my question. And then what's going to happen is when I do that, when I enter that meeting, the meeting that's going to happen in the future, when I enter that and I click on polling, I will be able to see that question pop up because I set it up in advance. So, so that's the answer to that. I think I answered it, didn't I?
So we have 2 more questions. Is there a limit to the number of questions you can ask in polls? And can polling be done in the breakout rooms?
That's a great question. I haven't had any problem. I've had multiple questions in a poll, I think up to 4 one time. I didn't have any problems. Unless you're imagining having a 100 question poll, I don't think you're gonna run into problems. I've had polls with like 4 or 5 questions and I didn't have any trouble. And in terms of doing the poll in the breakout room, the poll, remember, is something that it's host control. So in the breakout room, you can think of it by logic. I am the host and you are all participants. If you're all in each breakout room, say 5 people in 5 groups, if I want to launch the poll, I'm gonna have to go into each room, run the poll, and then get out. Go to the other room, run the poll, and then get out, and so forth. So it's something that it's host control. Students are not able to launch a poll by themselves. So another alternative is if you want to do that, you can create a simple Google form that you just give the link to, and then that way you don't have to, you can avoid trouble of going from group to group. Okay. I want to make a quick pause here and acknowledge that it's 11:20. We were supposed to have ended 5 minutes ago. I myself am available to stay here, but I do want to be respectful of your time. I do want to thank all of you. I can absolutely keep going here, but for those of you who may not be available to attend, to continue on the call, thank you very much. If you would like to stay, please stay, because I'm happy to keep going here and answer questions. All right. So
I have 2 more questions if you can answer them, actually 3. One is, how do you, if you use preset several questions, can you release them 1 question at a time? The second question is, can you get reports from Zoom, and how do you do that? And so I asked earlier about closed caption. You know, how did you get your closed caption up?
So let me take those in order. So the way that the polls happen, and the last time that I did multiple questions is where students were able to toggle between questions. I don't think there's a way to control, let's say, if I want students to stay on question 1 only, and then I enable question 2, I think students are able to toggle between questions. So you may want to look for another alternative. The second question is, how do you pull reports? And I think you're seeing my screen right now. So if you go into, you're seeing my browser right now, right, Nikki?
Yes.
Okay. So if you see the reports area right here, under the reports under meeting, you can, let me go ahead. If you click on report under meeting, you see right here, view registration reports and pull reports for meeting. Okay. So essentially what's going to happen is you're going to see the report. So I can go ahead and click on generate. This is an ongoing meeting. So hopefully I'll be able to generate a report. So this is the report for the meeting that is happening right now. Okay. So I clicked on generate so that Zoom can give me an Excel file. And then I will go ahead and click on download. And then I will go ahead and click on open. And we're going to reveal the way that these questions came up. Once my file opened up, give it just a second. Let's see. Okay. Or maybe it's because, hold on. Maybe it's because I haven't finished the meeting.
If I'm not mistaken, for reports, and I know sometimes you can pull attendance reports, you have to have completed the Zoom call for 15 minutes.
Yeah, so that's probably why. But essentially, this is the way that you will download it. You go into the reports, go into meetings. It says right here, view registration reports and pull reports for meetings. You look for the meeting that you're looking for, and then you click on generate, and then it will generate the report that you download as a CSV. Remember that the naming is important. Renaming yourself or allowing your students to rename themselves. I came across this the hard way. One time I was using polls for attendance and or for something else, I think. And then I ended up coming across the report, and there was a couple of phone numbers. I had no clue who they were. So always consider the renaming feature if you want to take this for attendance purposes. Okay. The other question was about live transcription, and the way that the live transcription works, as it did with breakout and with poll, you go into settings just to double check that you have the feature enabled. And then I'm going to go ahead. I don't know where that is, so I'm just going to go ahead and put live transcript, I think is, yes. It is under e-meeting advanced closed captioning, and this is the option that you want to make sure that you have checked off, enable live transcription service to show on the side of the panel in meeting. So if you do that, the next time you open your own meeting as a host, you will be able to see this option right here at the bottom. You should be able to see the transcripts as well from what I'm speaking. And then essentially when you click on it, you're going to see these three options. Okay. These two options were what were originally offered, but the last one is the one that we're looking for. It says disable because I have it enabled, but if you don't have it on, then you will simply click on disable, and then the transcription will appear for everyone. Okay, you're enabling the transcription for everyone in your call. If you click on the small arrow that points up, there's also the option for view full transcript. Okay, so if you click on view full transcript, essentially a side panel will appear, and then you will be able to see everything that the person is saying. As you can see at the bottom, it is transcribing what I am speaking. The cool thing about this is that if you're recording, I think even if you're not recording, but if you save your transcripts, it will generate a text file with a transcription of everything that has been said in the meeting. For the most part, I have found that it is quite accurate in terms of transcribing what people say. Okay. The other option that I wanted to show in terms of this is if you click on the blue and I'm sorry, the arrow that points up, the subtitle settings are important because you can actually alter the settings and make the font much bigger if you want, or make the font much smaller. The catch and the caveat with this, and I think the last time that I checked, this is the way it was, is that this changes it for you, okay? So you have to show this to your students so that they can alter the font size if they would like, okay? Someone asked me one time, oh, I made the size big enough so that one of my students was able to view it, but she kept telling me that the font was too small. That's because when you're making this change, as you can see, if I make this large, right? You're seeing it on my screen because I'm sharing my screen, but maybe you can check for yourself and see if the transcripts on your end are actually that big enough. And that's because you should alter the settings of your own closed captions. And I'm seeing Hector's thumbs up, so thanks for confirming. So if you want your students to see, to get a larger font, then you should always walk them through the process by doing that. And you tell them, click where you see the live transcript, click on the arrow that points up, and then click on subtitle settings. And that will bring their own settings where they can alter the size of the font to their needs. Okay, that's something something important to mention. So, okay, any other question?
Pablo, there's a question from Marina. She asked a question about reports. Is there any way to arrange participants in alphabetical order?
To create that in the report itself, or to arrange that in the Zoom call?
Marina, do you want to clarify what you mean?
Yes. So when you click on the report, you can see participants, but they usually go in order, you know, how they join the session. So basically by the time they are in the session.
Yeah.
Is there any way to arrange there by alphabetical order? Because it's actually, I tried, but couldn't find that option.
Well, if I'm not sure that there's an option for that in Zoom itself, okay. But if you would simply create a filter in that column on the spreadsheet, excuse me, and you organize them in alphabetical order, you will quickly rearrange the items on that spreadsheet in alphabetical order. But that's something in Excel. Not on Zoom per se. Once you download the report, there will be Zoom will generate a CSV file, as you saw a moment ago, and you will be able to organize them in any way that you want.
Okay.
And I'm seeing my colleague Lang on the call, and I think if you don't mind, Lang, if you're hearing me, sharing the feedback survey so that we can get feedback from folks.
Definitely.
I think
Tom is here too.
I think I forgot that. So, thank you so much. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you. It was so helpful.
Great. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for your time. I hope it's a difficult time getting ready for a new semester, so I hope everything goes well, that you're preparing to get started in the semester as smoothly as possible. I'm teaching on Saturday, so I'm getting ready for that too. So if there's no more questions, thank you so very much for your high five, Tom, to you as well. Thank you.
Pablo.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I have get a meeting with you for a Zoom intensive? Like when?
Absolutely. I'll reach out to you separately so that we can arrange that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I need to see you. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So thanks everyone. Nikki, unless there's any other questions, any other closing remarks?
Just if you guys can fill out the survey that's posted in the chat, that would be great.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. And before I forget, I mentioned about the Zoom training. Give me just a second and I can pull this up very quickly. Invite link, registration, copy link. I'm going to put the CTL is going to be running a Zoom training in the next 2 weeks. I'm putting the link on the chat. If you would like, please consider joining. We're going to go over how to set up recurring meetings on Zoom and some basics. So if you feel like you need that, I invite you to sign up. And as my colleague Nikki said, please do take a moment to fill out the feedback survey. It's one of the many ways in which we are able to tell the kind of support that we can provide to all faculty. If you let us know your needs, we can certainly work around that. All right. So without any more questions, thank you so very much. I wish you all the best and take care. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.